Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk about Battle Squadron.
All right.
But before we do, we got some feedback. Chris Folds wrote in on our Facebook page. He said it's 2016 and that can only mean one thing. A brand new version of Directory Opus is out for PC.
Yep.
Yeah. He says that he uses the previous, well, the now previous version for all of his work, and it's still excellent. Do you know anybody that still uses Directory Opus?
Yes. Shane R. Monroe of Passenger Seat Radio is still a Directory Opus user. I don't know anyone personally that uses it. It's a good piece of software. I've dabbled with the PC version. Of course, we mostly remember it from the Amiga, but it's good that they're still around.
Now, when you install it on the PC, do you run it as a separate application, or does it somehow take the place of Windows Explorer?
I ran it. I just had the demo.
Mm-hmm.
It ran just a separate app.
Okay.
But who knows? They may have really good integration now.
Right. We had a lot of feedback this week on YouTube, just a ton of it. But
yeah, it was crazy.
It's always been like that. You've been coming on board, and I just wanted to thank you on air for helping out, replying, because I mean stuff comes in constantly, and having because if you guys have posted something on YouTube and we haven't gotten back to you, it's my fault. I'm sorry, but Aaron's been helping me pick up the slack a little bit.
In all honesty, Bo's being silly. I've never checked the feedback on YouTube, and it never even occurred to me to go back to the old episodes. Hey, once I do one that's in the can, I don't want to look back. I don't know, but I had a little bit of extra time this week, and so I was just going back. I was like, I wonder if anybody ever talks about these old shows. And I was stunned to see that people were talking about them a lot.
Yeah,
there was a lot of stuff going on. And I was like, well, it's weird. And it was neat to go back and look at the view count and see who's...
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, too, I don't mention it on the show because once we're 2 or 3 episodes out, I don't want to say way back, and our Hybris episode, this guy said so. But we do read all of your comments on YouTube, and hopefully we're getting back to you. We want to continue the conversation because these games are great. They deserve more than just us talking about them for a week.
That's true. And I will try to do better. By I mean do something.
What news do you have this week?
Well, let's see here. There's a new Kickstarter out for keycaps. I think this came up a long time ago. Amiga keycaps, but they're getting to kick it off again. I looked at the keycaps; they're cool looking. I think it's the same outfit that's doing the cases, that did the cases or whatever. They look awesome. If you want to spend the money, of course they've got to get backed first. But it's on Kickstarter, so they must have some printed up to show off. So if you're into that, it's linked up on the Google Plus, and go check it out if you want to support the Kickstarter.
I'm going to need some keycaps for my Mac Plus keyboard that's coming in the mail.
Well, hey, they probably got a much better chance of getting Kickstarter at least over here than the Amiga.
That's true.
This was nutty, and just so I put a plug on it on the Google Plus, and I thought I'd mention it here. Somebody took a modded Gotek floppy emulator, which we all know and love, the thing that plugs into your Amiga and places the floppy drive, and you can plug a USB card in it or whatnot. Anyway, someone rigged it up to be remotely controlled by their Android phone.
Really?
Now, upon first glance, I thought to myself, why? Why would you do that? But they had a good point. And the point was, you can effectively internalize this thing now and use your phone to remotely set up what you want to play. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to have the thing sticking out the side or gumming up the way it looks. And if you're with a bunch of purists who don't like that, effectively you could sort of
They don't have to know.
trick them.
Right.
So kind of neat. I had a look at, I had a look at how it was done. It's not like, put glue here and then you're done. This is a pretty heady gimmick, but it's neat. Maybe it'll get integrated into a future version or whatnot. I doubt it. We never know, man. This was interesting. I listened to the Amy cast this week when I got word of this. Have you heard about this? This week's Amy cast, which I'm not even sure the guy that does Amy cast. I know he's European.
I think they might be Polish.
I think you're right. I mean, it was in English, and I don't even. It seems like I've listened to this show before, and it wasn't in English, but I could be insane. Has it always been in English? Do you know?
I think that I don't know.
It may have been. Anyway, the guy they had on there this week is opening an Amiga store in the United States.
Really?
It's crazy, but it gets crazier. I listened to this whole interview, and it was pretty a thorough interview. And I will say the guy is passionate. He seems to have his head on straight. He's pretty knowledgeable. He's a programmer. He's looking to do a lot of good community stuff, like the institution of in hiring of people to make drivers for certain things for the Amiga that don't currently exist. But the wacky twist on it all is he is basically going to specialize in OS4 stuff, like not classic stuff. It sounded like he didn't want to really do hardly any classic stuff. I mean, he said they would carry some classic stuff, but I mean, he said his number one focus was on supporting the Amiga going forward. And this includes building machines, stocking motherboards, doing software support, making software, coming up with different hardware. He sounded like a pretty intelligent guy, and from the way he was talking, he must have some backing. I know it's him and a partner, and they're going. I think it's going to be called Amiga on the Lake. It's going to be because it's up near. It's up on the Great Lakes. He plans on supporting America, USA, and Canada, which is in a perfect spot there on the lakes. It was an interesting interview. He kept emphasizing that he wants to introduce a new generation of people to the Amiga, to the new Amiga, and so he plans on focusing the majority of his sales or his advertising at college students and people attending school. Your thoughts?
Well, I think the Amiga as a platform in 2016 is a tough sell. I think the cost of the hardware versus the cost of hardware of any other major operating system is going to be exponentially larger for the computer that you end up getting. You're going to run into the normal issues of compatibility with software. If you're trying to sell stuff to college students, you remember what it was like being in college. You want the cheapest thing that you can get so you can have money left over to spend on fun stuff.
I think when I don't think this, I know this, he wanted to appeal to college students who dabbled in program. Here's the generous plan was, I'm going to show students this new platform that they can develop for. Okay. Mm-hmm. So these are basically young developers, is what he's really going after. And he mentioned a fellow. Do you remember a story we had a while back that a guy had managed? I think it was OS4. He'd managed to give it the ability to access Google Drive. Remember that we covered that a long time ago.
Yeah, I think so.
This guy basically he became pretty well known, and part of this guy's argument was that these young programmers, to get noticed on the Apple or the PC is very difficult to break in. Mm-hmm. On a system like OS4, you could be a hotshot pretty quick because it's such a small pool of talent, and you could become a big name by developing something very snazzy very quickly. And he said, of course, OS4 needs a lot of work in a lot of various areas: the browser, the networking, blah 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 blah. And this is a place where you could leave your mark quickly. That was actually not the stupidest argument I've ever heard.
I think that's a decent argument. I think that if I was going to just play devil's advocate, I would say that a lot of those type of people probably gravitate toward the various forms of Linux.
Well,
Because OS4 is not an open platform, right?
Again, though, Linux it's a much bigger pool.
It is. It is.
So, and I thought about this. I'm like, my first thought was, can an Amiga store make it in the U.S., which is, let's face it, there's not that many Amiga users running around. And both these guys mentioned, like on the forums, or they've seen the same guys for years and years. So it's not like new people are flocking on, you know. But I thought to myself, can an Amiga store make it in the U.S. in 2016? Just period.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it could, because it's the only one.
Right.
And because there's a market for the Amiga to a certain degree. Now, to market primarily to OS4, I don't know if you're going to do it. I just don't think there's going to be enough interest. It's okay to say you're going to attract new people, but I mean, that's a tough sell. He says he doesn't plan on making a profit for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. If this is not his full-time job, then I mean, absolutely he can.
No,
do
this
it.
is going to be the full-time deal.
So he's going to do this.
This is going to be.
his
They're working out stuff with distributors. They're working out stuff, and you know, and I have to say it's a very interesting interview. I've linked it up on the Google Plus, if you want to check it out. But it's worth listening to.
Now,
it really is.
I know you know a little bit about OS4.
A little.
What is the selling point? I mean,
It's a mod. It's the modern. It runs on modern-ish hardware, and it's a more modern version of what the Amiga was running. And I don't know enough to sit here and tell you what's great about it because I've not used it.
Okay.
I've seen it used. I'll tell you something else this guy mentions, and this is the truth. You can take this to the money bank. I listened to this interview. I'm like, you know, I really need to brush up on OS4 because I'm here. I am a co-host of the Amigos. I don't know jack squat about the new Amigas. I really don't. You know, and we pretty much came forward long ago, so we don't know jack squat about the modern Amigas. And so I thought, you know, we get on YouTube, and I'm going to find a beginner's guide to OS4 or a FAQ. Let me tell you something. There ain't jack squat. And the guy brought this up in the interview. He's like, listen, he goes, we're going to put how-to videos up. We're going to put instructional videos up so they can guide people that don't know what they're doing. That's a good idea because I don't know what I'm doing, and I couldn't find. I mean, it's not like I'm an idiot. I searched around. I couldn't find jack squat to tell me what was going on.
Right. And
you know?
I think that there's a lot of people that are just into alternative operating systems anyway. I'm one of those people. I love checking out, you know, all the different kinds of Linux and stuff like that, looking at videos. All the stuff that's around MorphOS and ARG
Morph was
OS
mentioned,
and
by the
all
way.
that
That's another
stuff,
one that was
and
mentioned,
OS4. I think it's really fascinating. I'd love somebody to talk me into trying it.
Yeah, I would like to get on board at least. I'd like to have a working knowledge. I don't have to be the master, but I'd like to, you know, because I feel like an idiot right now. It's like, but I mean, it's something else. I mean, if you're going to attract new people to the platform, you better have something ready to go.
Right.
You know, because here I am. I'm eager. I'm willing to learn. Give me a video.
Yeah.
And by the way, if anybody out there has a good video on there that I didn't find in English that can get kind of get you up to speed on OS4 and a brief synopsis, shoot it our way.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Hey, good luck to the guy.
Yeah.
He should be starting up real soon. So if you know, and I don't know, we've got a goodly amount of U.S. listeners.
Do you know what his URL is?
It's up, but there's nothing there yet,
Okay.
so I haven't put it up yet.
Yeah, but
I will
we'll bring
as
it
soon as
up
it comes
again
online.
when they launch. We'll give a little review of the site.
Speaking of OS4, again, we don't normally cover this, but I couldn't help myself. There's a new emulator out for OS4. It's also out Linux, Unix, Mac OS X, Windows, but it's called XRoar, right? XRoar, you ever heard of it? Me either. It emulates, among other things, it emulates a lot of stuff, but the thing I saw, it emulates a Coco. So you can, it's kind of neat on OS4, you can emulate the Coco.
Yeah.
They had a cool picture of Trek Bow over here, which is an old game I used to play. So, again, I linked it up. If you're into that sort of thing, check it out and let me know how it runs because I think it's neat. I think it's kind of neat that you can run that stuff like that. I'm sure you saw this. I've seen this a couple places. Chris Follett's put up the Psygnosis game generator. Awesome. I love that. And
and what that is you basically hit refresh in your browser and it will automatically generate a Psygnosis cover by Roger Dean. And I made the comment that you could also use it as a Yes album cover generator.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. I love Yes, by the way.
Oh yeah, they're great.
We talked about this game a while back, and this is back when it was something that was coming soon. It's a game called Reshoot. Do you remember when we talked about this?
Yeah. You brought this up a while back.
It's out.
Okay.
And now I haven't played it, but I found a good review of a fella that put it up, a pretty in-depth review, and I watched the review. And the game is, I'll tell you, when I first saw this game, I was like, man, this is a weird-looking game. Weird, kind of abstract game. It is that. It is it's a shooter, but it's a real bizarre.
Kind of like, is it like Geometry Wars or something like that?
No. It's more of a straight-up shooter with just weird stuff to shoot and weird things shooting.
I like shooting weird things.
I haven't played it, but just from watching the review and just seeing a video of it, the soundtrack is just god-awful. I mean, it's just like this droning noise. I mean, it's
maybe it's a work in progress.
I don't know. I'm not reviewing it, so I'm not going to make a comment on this guy's review. But that's one thing I was like, God, this is that's no good.
And does this work on an OCS?
Yeah,
Amiga? Okay,
it sure does. Let me see if there's anything else. I did put in reference to today's episode. I found an interview with Martin Pedersen, which is one of the sort of hybris and today's game where his baby. I've linked it up if you want to look at that. It's a really good interview. So I think that's pretty much all I've got.
It's good news week.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of stuff previewing this week, so it means that like I've always said, by the time November, December comes around, we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about because there's a lot of stuff coming out. And of course, the Vampire is still on its way, and some other little bits of hardware I've heard, little pieces about should be coming out. So I think by Christmas time, we're going to be really rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
And I noticed we had a lot of site updates this week too. So
we had a couple articles by Dreamcatcher. He interviewed Michael Janicki, who was a programmer for Ocean France.
That was a real interesting interview.
Yeah, it was about the unreleased Liquid Kids game.
I thought it was interesting when they were talking about how much help they were getting on stuff and
how much help they weren't getting.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's like, we don't need any help. I mean,
right.
Effectively, the guy was just like, we just do it ourselves.
Yeah,
it's like, okay.
It's funny when you think about ports now. I'm sure that assets and things like that are just passed from developer to developer when you're making things for different platforms. But back then, they basically would play the arcade game and plot out the sprites on graph paper and everything.
Oh gosh, and the thing is, they did a pretty good job on a lot of stuff. What amazes me on that stuff is how much the people that originally made the game, they just a lot of times don't give a crap.
Right.
It's like, okay, you're paying us for this license.
Okay,
go nuts.
Go for it.
But what if it stinks? Money.
Right.
I
think you're seeing inside the mind of a programmer.
I suppose so.
He also published just today a review of the game T-Racer. Have you seen this?
No, I didn't know. He must have just put that out.
He just put this up, and it's not really a review so much of it is it's an example of a public domain game that borrows quite heavily from an already existing game by Team 17 called Project X.
Oh yes, which we've talked about Project X.
And he was just talking about in the world of public domain. Things were borrowed quite often.
That's true in every system. Things got passed around, that's for sure.
So we got that up. We got some video up on the site. You have Aaron's first solo Amigos plays video.
I personally apologize for the hideous quality, but if you wanted a poor man's West Virginia, this is why Bo does the video podcast. But I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, and what do you play?
This week I played Stellar 7. And I'll tell you why. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned this, just to interrupt.
You're not interrupting.
I need some help from the listeners out here. My 1200 has developed a problem. It's not something I'm familiar with.
Does it last longer than 4 hours? Should you call a physician immediately?
Yeah, I probably could, but I don't know where the nearest Amiga doctor is. Folks, my 1200 has developed phantom mouse syndrome. I noticed that when I booted this thing up, I would get mouse clicks when I wasn't clicking, and every time it happened, I would hear the sound crack.
Yeah.
And so I thought, wow, this is not good. And so I unplugged the mouse, and I still got mouse clicks and heard sound clipping. I don't know if I've got a chip going bad or a cap. I don't know. So if you've ever seen this before, please drop me a line, because I'm not exactly licking my chops to take my baby apart, but I have a feeling I've got something going out, and it could be. I mean, this thing is old, and so it was for a long time stored in a closet or in a garage. So, if anyone knows anything about this sort of failure on the 1200, drop me a line.
And finally, got two more things. I do an Amigos plays of Count Duckula, both on the original Amiga 500 and an emulated version. The reason why I did an emulated version is because the version that O'Brien sent us was the PAL version, and probably a quarter of the screen was cut off.
I watched your video. Let me ask you a question about this video. Could your guy not get hurt?
So, part of the screen that was cut off was a timer, and it works like Pitfall. So whenever you run into an enemy or something like that, you don't die, you just lose time.
Oh, okay. Because so that explains that.
Right.
I haven't seen the emulated version.
Yeah, I just put that up tonight.
Now it looked really bad. How was it?
It's not a great game.
I didn't like the cartoon either, by the way.
It's been so long since I've seen it, I can't remember if I liked it or not.
It's no Danger Mouse.
Well, I think that they both came from the same studio.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
The animation's similar. I wasn't a huge fan of Danger Mouse, but it had its moments. I know that'll get me crucified.
with our big British audience, for sure. So I played that, and then finally I shot a little video of what all goes into the filming of a Amigos plays on the real Amiga 500 and all the craziness that ensues every time we try and set one of those up.
Yeah, that was interesting. Of course, it's funny. I know what goes into it, and I was still fascinated by your video. And I think we mentioned this last week. I know we did, but I had another look at Will Williams' SCSI thing, the video he put up to go along with the pretty interesting.
Yeah.
From the technical side.
Yeah, he put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, very professional. It's funny because I watched that, and then I watched what I did, and I thought to myself, "Oh boy, I hope this never sees the light of day." And then you, of course, had that good sense to put it online. So just ignore that, folks.
That's it. That's it for the site updates. It's time to talk about Battle Squadron.
All right. Good. Let's see what we got here. So, Battle Squadron. Now, the full title of this is not Battle Squadron.
Really?
No, the full title is Battle Squadron: The Destruction of the Barox Empire.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's my kind of title.
Yeah.
Came out in '89.
Okay, so just for frame of reference, what year did Hybris come out? Do you remember?
It was 80. I think it came out the same year or the year before. It was very close. I looked. Yeah.
Okay.
It was one disc. Right?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. Developed by an outfit called Cope/Com. All right. Guess what they developed? They developed this, and they developed Iris.
That's it.
And that is it.
That's the list.
I looked up a little bit on these guys, and there's not a whole lot to tell, to be completely honest with you. Danish Amiga software people, and they basically was a place. The development house was the people that made the game, effectively. Again, Danish. Just a little background. The fellow that started it was Martin P. Peterson, which we mentioned. This is the guy that was interviewed in the article, and the other fellow, Torben B. Larson. So I can pronounce these names.
Yeah.
Not too bad, eh?
We're getting better at our Scandinavian.
Yeah. They started out on the Amstrad. These guys met in school. And just kind of, it's funny, it was just sort of one of those things that happened, they got together. They had, but effectively, they happen to be the guys that make two of the most treasured shooters on the Amiga. They have not done much else, to be honest with you, and we'll get into that a little bit later. There's not much to that little house. They pretty much made those games. The game was. Again, the guy that made it, Martin Peterson, and the other fellow was Larson. He had a couple musicians, and they really didn't do much either. Because I thought the game had some pretty decent music. I really like the opening theme with the robotic voice.
Oh, yeah.
The Battle Squadron, that. And of course, Hybris had that awesome opening song, which I really liked too. I always love that. The guys that did this were from the Netherlands. I'm going to butcher these, boy. Ivo Zoer was one of the fellas. This is all, and all he ever did was Battle Squadron. The other fellow was Ron Claren, and he did this, obviously. He did Beverly Hills Cop, which I got to see that. I've never seen that before. He did something called Cyber Blast and something called The Plague. Now, the publisher of this, I like when we see these games that we don't see the guys very often, because this is another one. I've never heard of this outfit, ever. If you remember, Hybris was done by Discovery Software, I believe is the name. They went under. Shortly, they did Hybris. I don't know what else they did, but they went under right after this game got released. So I guess these guys saw the writing on the wall, and it was another publisher. And the publisher they went with was Electronic Zoo.
Electronic Zoo.
Which is a cool name.
Yeah.
I couldn't find jack squat on these guys, except for the fact that they're around from 89 to 93. These games that Electronic Zoo put out, I don't think I've heard of a single one of these. Let me ask you if you've heard any of these things. Abandoned Places, Ball Game,
The Ball
Game, Brigade Commander, Dark Spire.
That's cool.
Daylight Robbery. Kind of want to check that out. Echo Phantoms. This is like a random name generator. Germ Crazy, Magic Garden, The Prophecy 1. But there is no Prophecy 2 or 3. Subtuo, the computer game. So I'm guessing that's based on something. Treasure Trap, Under Pressure, and Zyphos. Never heard of a single one of those.
Not any of those.
No. So this also came out on the Genesis, which I thought was interesting. And the same people that brought it out on the Genesis also brought out Sword of Sodan on the Genesis, which is, you know me.
You're a big Sword of Sodan man.
I love it. This is a sequel to Hybris, which was the first game we ever covered. Is it a sequel? No, I mean, it's pretty much a full sequel. I mean, they pretty much make it. They even say it in the credits, you know, and in the interview, it's a sequel. I mean, I guess it's an official sequel. It doesn't. It's not called Hybris 2. Blah 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 blah. There's nothing really linking it to it from the box or anything, but I mean, it is. It's a sequel, and it's all over the thing that the thing's a sequel. So what you've got here, I guess you should describe the game. You want to try to describe this?
This is a top-down shooter. The background will move not only vertically but also diagonally from side to side as you progress through.
Yeah, there's
the levels.
a little wiggle room on it, which I love.
You have a plethora of different enemies, things to shoot. You've got power-ups that work sort of the same way that in Hybris. And you've also got just more smart bombs in this game than I think any other game I've ever played. You have many opportunities.
Generous with the bomb.
And you're working your way through this alien landscape. There's a combination of organic-looking enemies and mechanized robot-looking things. It's your garden variety shooter, but it's done very, very well.
Yeah. There are several things that set this apart from Hybris. I mean, there are a lot of similarities too, but I mean, not graphically really. I mean, it's a whole new bag.
The graphics are now it's been a while since we played Hybris,
right?
But in my mind, the graphics in this game are just miles ahead.
It's a beautiful game, and one thing about these guys, and I read a few interviews, including the one I put up, was that these guys really knew how to get some wacky tricks, some programming tricks. I mean, of course, how many times have we said this on the show? Hey, they got a wacky trick here. The guys that programmed for the Amiga were, some of them were elite.
Yeah.
And one of the things they did that was awesome was that shimmering Predator Invisa ship.
Yeah, that was really cool.
In the interview I wrote this guy, they asked, like, listen, the guy interviews, like, listen, have we ever seen this in any other game? And from what they could say, no one else ever did that. Ever. I mean, that's amazing if you think about that. There's so many things he says, the only time it ever appeared.
Yeah.
It is a tremendous effect.
And I didn't even think about it being unique until you mentioned it. But now that I think about it, I've never seen that in a game
I mean,
before.
it's beautiful. I mean, you see stuff now in modern games, but I mean,
back then,
think about that era. Holy smokes! And on the OCS, I mean, it's amazing. The sprites in this are. I mean, the ships are big. The enemies are big. You know, it takes full advantage of the screen. And the PAL version, you even get more real estate. I mean, there's a difference. The 2-player mode has you've got a couple different renditions. You can team up and just go through it and try to, or you can basically make it free for all. You can try to steal each other's stuff, and they've got little gates that you can, if you want, you can go underground. And but if both players go in, you're fine. But if one goes in, you don't go. That's the way it works. Mm-hmm. So there has to be some sort of cooperation here. And the underground are just simply different levels.
And it's got branching paths.
Right. According to the instruction manual, and the instruction manual has a long story. It's written almost like a radio log. Mm-hmm. And basically, 2 pilots were on their way back from a mission and were captured, a chick and a guy. I should have double checked it. I'm wondering if it's the same, because if you remember in Hybris, you can pick from a man or a woman. I don't remember their names, but I wonder if it's I wonder if those are the people that got captured.
It was like kind Jensen. It's something that started with a J.
The
Jaworski.
I wasn't that surely.
Jaws.
But they've been captured and taken a planet by the evil Barax Empire.
Yeah, Barax Empire.
And so
my favorite empire.
The book, the intelligence of whatever military organization you are with, decide that it's too risky to go in there with a huge fleet, because they'll sound all the alarms. So you can go with 1 or 2 ships to go in there and blow them away. And here you go. Mm-hmm. And so your object is to go to this planet and just blow the crap out of everything you see. And there's plenty of stuff to shoot. I mean, there's stuff everywhere. Mm-hmm. That little wiggle room you get on the sides of the screen is tremendous. I mean, that really adds something to it. It just feels better to me. I always like games that do that. Additional. The Banshee, I think Banshee.
Banshee does it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. This game compares favorably, in my opinion, to just about every shooter on the Amiga. It's not as frantic. It's funny. This game is really a game unto itself, because it's a bullet hell shooter, but it's not frenetic. It's not. I mean, because
I think part of it has to do with the speed of the bullets, and part of it has to do with how many things are the movement of your enemies is not super fast. So it's got a lot of stuff going on, but the things aren't moving super fast.
And there are so many bullets on the screen. It's impressive. Given the Amiga, what they were working with, and of course, from the interview I read, they used several different techniques to effectively get more memory. To take every morsel. It's funny. In the interview, they mentioned that that Hybris was notoriously difficult to pirate, right? And the reason is it used every bit of Amiga memory, everything.
Mm-hmm. So there was nothing.
And so there was nothing they could do. And I noticed and of course the guy was proud of that. And on Battle Squadron, they use so much space on the disc that at the end of the thing, they actually, if you beat the game, the credits have included like a thank you roll and little messages from the 2 guys. And the one guy's like, "Yeah, I would like to put more stuff back here, but we're out of space." You're right.
End of line.
Which I thought was kind of funny. The game was incredibly popular. So was Hybris. By the way, I mentioned in the interview, the guy actually gave out some numbers on how Hybris sold.
Oh, that's always good stuff, because we very rarely hear about sales.
I believe he said, let me look it up here. I don't want to give it false information here. I know he said it sold. Here it is. It sold over 10,000 units.
Okay.
Now, not bad. That's not bad. But the Battle Squadron, there's no selling on that. But he also said that it sold well. So they did not use a ton of original programming from Hybris to make this, and really it doesn't even play like Hybris.
No, it plays like a different game.
There are things in Hybris I like that aren't in this, but like I said, it's not really a comparison, because Hybris is by no means now made obsolete. Hybris had things that it did that just doesn't do, but this thing does stuff, vice versa. This thing has a total of 25 or so different weapons you can get, because as you get, it's sort of like a if you ever played Raiden, and I'm sure you've played Raiden in the arcade, you would in this game, as you go through, power-ups will appear if you shoot certain enemies, and there'll be different colors, and if you pick, let's say, red, if you see it again and it's red, you get it again, you go up to the next level of red. Each weapon has 5 levels, so you can end up with like 25 levels of stuff.
Right.
Plus, you've got the smart bombs, like that you talked about. So there's a lot of variety on the thing. The fact that you can play 2 players simultaneous, boy, you don't see that very often. And really, the only one I think I brought top of my head is the Lux Galaga that's on the Amiga.
Well, I think Banshee was.
Those the only.
And Swiv and Silkworm.
Swiv, though, that's a whole different type of those games. I mean, that's, yes, you're playing simultaneous, but you're not both running the ship. That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. Yeah, those would count. Another thing I thought was interesting about this, when they made this game, the two fellows were like 18. And then when they made Hybris, they were younger than that.
That's crazy. It's
Unbelievable.
He says in Denmark, they were still in high school because I guess of course it was last. I don't know how they do it there, but I thought that was interesting that they were making this stuff while they were in school. And they said on Hybris it took them where one of the other program would go overseas to America occasionally, so they would just work on it out like at nights and stuff. It took about a year. This one ran, they said, 8 months. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
8 months. That's a really quick turnaround.
A quick turnaround for sure.
You know, it makes me wonder why these guys didn't make more stuff, because when you could go that quick, it'd be.
Did he say what they went on to do afterwards? I mean, did they just leave game design
He said
altogether?
that. Well, the problem is Electronic Zoo. They went down the toilet.
So they just picked.
And I think these guys got disillusioned because he actually, like in the interview, he says like basically, you know, every place we'd worked has went under, and so they, I guess they said the hell with that. I looked over the reviews for this game. They were really good, but one stuck out, and apparently this is sort of legendary. Now, not here because we don't get any magazines, but over in the UK maybe it was. Amiga Computing gave this game 109%.
Out of 100?
Out of 100. And the reason they did that was they had awarded another game 100%. I'm trying to go. It might have been Hybris. I'm not sure. But it was another shooting game. And the guy said, "Man, if this game," he said, "this game was crushed it." He's like, "So if that game got 100%, what can I do?" Well, I'll show you what I can do to give it 109%. And it caused quite a stir. Apparently,
I'm sure.
that they. And I don't know if any other game. We've never seen a game get above 100%. I don't think we ever seen one get 100%, have we? They ended up porting this thing to iOS, and I don't know if it's came over to Android or not yet. But apparently they're also going to work on a port of Hybris as well. There was a Battle Squadron 2 Aviators that had been started on by the same guys. Now this game sounds crazy. It was going to have a beat 'em up element.
Really?
Yes.
How strange.
I saw some still shots of it, and I don't know if there's video of it. I've got to try to find this video. But I mean, it looked really weird. And in the interview, he's like, "Yeah, it's like we thought about trying to have a new type of game that would have different elements in every game, something that had never been done before." And so this was what they came up with, and it was, so you can imagine what that would be like.
Oh yeah.
I don't have any idea what that would play, but apparently they didn't get too far into it before they gave up. Just a side note, because we probably won't ever talk about this guy again. This guy worked on a game called Hugo. Now you've probably never heard of this game. It was a game. It was developed in Denmark, and I read. I was like, how the hell this guy who made this thing, he got involved in it? Well, he quotes in the article. He said they asked him about Hugo, and he says, well, I guess there just aren't that many Danish Amiga programmers, and so we sort of all, get tapped occasionally. And so I remember having this game. I don't know how it came to my possession. I know it was nefarious because it's not like I can go out to the local store and get me some games from Denmark.
Right.
This was one weird ass game. I mean, and the thing is, it had awesome graphics, but it was a disjointed, weird game. I mean, it's one we've got to do an Amiga's play on sometime. It's a strange one, but he worked on that as well. And then pretty much that's it. He pretty much was done. like I said, there was the Genesis version of this. I've not seen it. I would say it's probably comparable. It should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of it for the Genesis?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you played it?
No. I didn't play a lot of Genesis games back in the
Yeah,
day.
I didn't either. Maybe we'll have to play it when I get my 32X. I'm running.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you think?
I probably put more time into this game than almost any other game that we reviewed. It's incredibly addictive because the challenge doesn't immediately scare you off. The game is gorgeous to look at. The power-ups when you get an upgraded gun is very satisfying to shoot that upgraded gun. The power-ups are varied. You're not just working your way through the same progression.
All right.
I love the music. Love the music.
And apparently the music's been, much like the Hybris music, has been used and reused and revamped and released and remixed. So
one of the things that I noticed, if you go to the game over screen and you just wait, the music will eventually shift to this kind of mournful dirge like tune. And it was great too. And so I played this. I probably played it for an hour last night just before bed. It was so much fun. I love the enemy types, the huge sprites. Like, my big problem with Hybris is that the bosses and stuff just moved really lamely across the screen.
they sort of just moped along.
Yeah, but in this game, even the big sprites are animated well, you know. And when you kill, like when you go under the underground section and you see the first big thing, when it dies, it doesn't just explode; it just kind of wilts and melts into the background. It's really, really cool.
You know, it's funny. When I was reading about this game and stuff from the programmers, they were asked often, it's like, what was the inspiration for Hybris? What was the inspiration for Battle Squadron? And he said the same thing both times. It's like, well, we didn't play that many games because we're programmers. We wouldn't make the games because we took inspiration from the arcade. Hybris doesn't really remind me of much of anything. It looks great. This reminds me somewhat of a game called Alcon. I've mentioned Alcon on the show before. It's in the UK and Europe. It may have been known as Slap Fight, stupidly known as. But the way that the bullets in Alcon follow your ship and move, this mirrors that quite a bit. This has segments in it where there are these almost like tubes with stuff going across rails, something like that. That's straight out of Alcon. So I would not be surprised if Alcon wasn't used as some source. I have the feeling that Alcon was a bigger game over in Europe than it was here, because no one here knows what it is.
Yeah, I only know about it from you.
Yeah,
so.
But I agree with everything you said. The music's great, the graphics are very good. Did you have any problem? One of the criticisms I've heard about this game a lot is releasing your smart bomb.
Yes, that is the biggest and the only real fault I have with this game. I died so many times because I held down that button and I spun that stick and nothing happened.
Of course, I've got the Wicco. I have a feeling this is a gamepad related issue because I never have a single problem launching this thing. Oh, that reminds me of my broken Amiga. It's like broken Matt Hardy. Broken Amiga, except it's not cool. But if I tried to play Hybris and it would just use every smart bomb I had instantly.
Oh.
Yeah, that's because the mouse, the inputs go bananas. But
can you use the mouse to release the smart bomb?
You can play this with the mouse.
Okay.
And on the mouse, you use the second mouse button. That's why I kept releasing. You know. Now I've heard that you can plug. I think you can plug a Sega stick in this and use the second mouse button to launch. That I can't confirm that. But it didn't bother me a bit. That's the exact same way that the first game, you could do it in the first game. I believe the first game you could also hit the space bar. I'm not 100% sure. But
in this game, you definitely can't. I tried.
But yeah, this game is chock full of power-ups. Now, how do you put this on a scale? I mean, when we think about the best shooters we've seen, because we've covered your Blood Moneys, and we've covered your Banshees, we've covered your Hybrises, and several more. How does this fall on the scale?
This is the only shooter that we've played on the Amiga that I've really felt compelled to play more than I should have for the purposes of this review.
It's funny you should say that, because the reason I suggested this is because what did we play last week? It was How Bad Are We? I can't remember the game from last week. Anyway, when I was playing that, I'd finished it up, And I was like, what else I can get into? And I just saw it there. I was like, man, I remember this game being really good. And I sat and played it for like 2 hours.
Yeah,
Non-stop.
yeah,
I'm like,
it's great.
And I couldn't stop. You know, when you get killed, it's like, oh, man, I think I can do better.
Right.
And that's the best type of game, you know. But it's a unique game on the Amiga. And I don't mean just shooter. I mean just across the board. It's like, I mean, 109%, that's a lot. But, I mean, it's got great graphics. It's got great sound. It's got great gameplay. It's got 2-player multiplayer. You know, it's got all options for all that. I think it's a winner. I mean, I think I'd give it my highest possible shooter endorsement.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And it's a shame that these guys didn't finish the sequel. So, fellas, if any of our listeners are out in Denmark, go start applying some pressure because they both still live out there. Or at least one of them does. Go get them. Tell them we want more. Yeah, and this is the perfect time. It's the perfect time to make it.
So it's time for the score comparison.
All right, you tell me what you got first.
My top score was 188,800.
How far did you get?
I don't know. I definitely got past.
You did well. You did better than me.
Oh.
Yeah. I got 163,000.
Oh, sorry. You were proud too. You sent me a text. Record your score.
I will do better. And to be fair, this week my Amiga tanked.
Okay.
And so that gave that's the last thing I did before the thing fell over.
Don't forget to use the old controller excuse once we start the live stream too.
Oh, okay. The gauntlet has been cast, folks.
But I love this game. Thank you for suggesting it. It was a good pull.
It's funny. I never really suggest that many games anymore.
Yeah.
And
you should do it more often. If you're like this.
This was an epiphany, you know. And I don't know how popular this game was either. You know, but then again, I don't hear much about Hybris. But I mean, it's one of our more popular shows. But it was our first, so I don't know. So we'll see. But you know, if you haven't played it, dust it off, man. It's a winner.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank our Patreon supporters, and I will do that by singing their names in the style of Elton John's "Candle in the Wind."
Before you begin this blasphemy, I had a person on YouTube ask me if there's anything I could do to murder you for your singing. I tried.
Paul Harrington, Lawrence Giroux, Loggins, Jonas Rouleau, Kilburn Bomb and tapes from the cribs. Oh, Adam Bradley, Chris Folds, Will Williams, Daniel Bingston, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Chad Halstead and Brent Dowdy. We need more Patreon supporters so I can finish the song. I only got midway through the chorus.
Yeah.
So
that's going to bring them in, too.
If you want to support us, check us out on patreon.com/Amigos podcast.
Sorry, YouTube guy, I tried.
We had several comments just saying that my singing was just unbelievably
I believe
great.
that. It's unbelievable. I can hear the neighborhood dogs out there gathering at the window.
Next week, Aaron, we're going to decide what we're going to play right now on the air because we didn't talk about it beforehand.
We're going to make
the call right now.
Right now. Well, let's. This is our reasoning. This is a window into the production of the show, just like your video on how you say.
Normally, we talk about this before the show.
Here's what we'd like to do. We just did a shooter. Okay. We've done a ton of CinemaWare games and Teen 17 games recently, and Psygnosis games. We should try to pick something that's not one of those. So what do you got?
That's everything, right? We haven't done. Do you want to do it?
I would like to do. I've got a couple things in mind.
Okay, go.
I would like to do at least one, maybe two. We could probably do two arcade conversions, and I've got a couple in mind. But I mean, I feel free to overturn.
Well, the problem with that is, are you going to be able to find enough stuff for us to talk about?
Oh yeah,
on arcade conversion where the information is scarce.
Oh, you never know what you're going to find. What do you have in mind? What do you? If you got something better, feel free.
I was thinking about Crazy Cars 3. You know anything about Crazy Cars 3?
Oh, you know what we should do? I got it.
Okay.
What's that game that you just got working that you said was awesome? And everyone's told us it's got a stupid name.
Rodland.
Let's do Rodland. And by the way, for those of you that hung around through that, all four of you, both we should put up a link to show people how to get this stuff to work on the emulator.
Yeah.
That we just learned.
Yeah. So, where did you find that?
I found it by Googling it and searched through a bunch of forums.
Yeah.
I'll promise you, folks, we've had all. If you've watched our live stream, you realize that we're inept most of the time, and we staggered through them like idiots, which is hard trying to rig up the live, real Amiga video. But we found some setting changes that made a dramatic impact on our ability to play these old games on the emulator. And I'll put up a link and post them up, and I'll have Bo put them up on Facebook, and hopefully for you folks that have been following us on your own emulated Amiga, this will give you a bonus to get this stuff running. Because
Yeah.
you said it made a huge difference.
Like, for example, Count Duckula wouldn't emulate properly at all when I tried it before, and with these settings, it worked like a charm.
Perfect.
Rodland, same thing. Battle Squadron. So
Awesome.
this is maybe we'll even try some of the other Body Blues games now that they'll run at the right speed.
Another one, Stunt Car Racer, was a complete
I
disaster.
tried Stunt Car Racer with the new settings. It still doesn't.
Oh,
work.
bugger. Well, you can't win them all.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week with. I've already forgotten.
Rodland.
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 Adios.